good riddance. Anyway, freaking Tag 2.
Yeah, I see. I know you don't have much positive to say about it, but I'm gonna go ahead and get my shit off. Um, Tag 2 is my favorite Tekken game. Um, I feel like it brought back a lot of what I liked about the series that Tekken 6 sort of eclipsed, I guess. We didn't touch on the juggle system in Tekken 6, but that's okay because we're going to talk about it a little bit here. They added a system called Bound in Tekken 6, and it revolutionized the juggles for Tekken because it made it so you could get more hits off and strategically position your characters around the screen with the opponents. I guess move them around with the juggles, and I think that really revolutionized the fighting game scene more than people give it credit for, because anime fighters always existed, but 3D fighters came afterwards, and they all had their own juggle system, which is well and good, but I feel like after Bound they stepped their game up to try and make it so juggles were more of a main focus, and I sense that all around in anime fighters. I sense, like, after BlazBlue came out, seeing the success of Tekken 6, I feel like they were like, oh man, we need to do some more with the juggling, and juggles in BlazBlue got crazier. Every game got crazier. Continuing the combo became like the biggest thing. And, in Tekken Tag 2, they definitely improved upon that, in my opinion. There's some balance issues with Tekken Tag 2, but I feel like those things could have been fixed with a patch. The worst thing about Tag 2, in my opinion, is they never really patched that game for balance. And I think that if they patched that game 1/4 as many times as they patched Tekken 7, then nobody would be fucking crying about it right now. But, Bob was top tier, Lars was top tier, Double Jim was top tier, Eddie was busted because he had back 4-1 and he could launch juggle you from it off of the counter. It was safe. Like, it was hit confirmable. It was just a move that tracked, I think. Like, there was a couple bad outliers in that game. But overall, the movement was better than Tekken 6. The netcode was a bit better than Tekken 6. I would actually say a lot better. It was the smoothest connection I had at that point. And they brought back every character, even Dr. Boskanovich. The only character that they didn't bring back was Elisa. I'm not Elisa, Gon. And that was okay because he was a guest character. They put characters in the game that shouldn't have even been there. Slim Bob, Sebastian. Eventually, like I said, every character was in there. It was a good reunion. I got to play with characters I like. I like Michelle over Julia. I like Kunimitsu over Yoshimitsu. Those characters got good endings that fit their character. You got to see Michelle interact with Julia besides, that ending in Tekken 3 where she saves her. You got to see Kunimitsu still Yoshimitsu's sword, harkening back to Tekken 2. You got to see Beck crying because he accidentally killed his father when he was younger. That shit was super dope. I would say that's one of the best endings in Tekken history. And people will shit on that game for various reasons. They'll say it's too hard. They'll say it's too easy. I love Tekken Tag 2. They'll shit on the customization. Like, yeah, a lot of characters had generic clothes. There were some specific clothes. And those specific clothes were cool. You can unlock them. But the clothes that were, quote, generic weren't that bad because eventually they added custom decals where you could add designs to your own clothes. So people were making different designs and stuff, which you see today in Soul Calibur 6. There's more hair options than any other Tekken game. You can add sideburns, different parts, different bang options, different types of ponytails, stuff to go on your ponytails. Like, bro, Tekken Tag 2 is a shit, and people don't give it its flowers. I love the game. You could change the color of your effect, so I could change Heihachi's color effect, from his lightning, from blue to yellow like it was in Tekken 3 and Tekken Tag. Like, yo, Devil Kazuya, you could transform into him at any time. It was such a good time. The stages were good looking. The music was much better than it has been. Probably one of the best soundtracks I would say they ever had. One of them at least. And then they added Tekken tunes. You could play every soundtrack from every Tekken game. It was dope. If you pre-ordered Tekken Tag 2, by the way, you got 8 DLC characters a month early for free. They were going to be free anyway, but you got them a month early, and and you got to play the game without paying for a game pass. Back in the day when Tag 2 came out, there was a few games that were on this wave where you had to pay $10 to play online. Call of Duty was one of them, and you've seen what happened to that, but they don't do that anymore. But that might have had something to do with his downfall. But I love Tag 2. I don't have many negative things to say about Tag 2 besides they should have balance patched it. And that's all I got to say. Han, sorry, I didn't mean to hog that.
Alright, what I have to say.
Thanks for that yawn, by the way.
Pardon me. What I have to say about Tag 2, like, I see that as a quality game. Has a lot to it. Has characters. Has a lot of stages.
And characters could get wet and dirty.
Better animations.
Yeah.
I get all that. But the thing is that, don't forget, this is a 3D fighting game. And then, you know, each character at that point had a lot of moves to each of their move sets. Like, and in order to, you know, to stay afloat in this game, to play for long term, you have to study every single matchup, every single team, because there's 2v2, and well, how many characters in there? Like 50, 40 something?
I think it's 51 if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 52.
Okay, 51 characters times 50, because apparently, or even more, because you have to study the teams, because there were team-based, because this game is team-based, like, you still had to study each team that works well with each other, because, you know, certain characters work better with others, with the combos and stuff, you know what I mean? The Oki and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's just overwhelming for the majority. That is just a lot of work you gotta do in order to even stand a chance in this game, you know, competitively at least, you know.
Yeah, this is
a lot of people didn't like that, you know, and there was some balancing issues too. Like, if you paired up Steve with some other character that works well with him, then it's like you can never lose with that team, you know, because they just cover each other so well, you know. So vice versa, you know, and it's just like the content too. Like, what you really had, like I don't even remember. Like, I'm pretty sure they had Tekken Ball, but that was on like the Wii U version.
They had Tekken Ball in the Wii U version, but if you're asking for content for like the main consoles, like the 360 and the PS3, they had Ghost Battle, they had Practice, they had Team Battle, Survival. They had everything that Tekken, like, I'm trying to think.
Had already.
Yeah, they had everything Tekken had already. The only thing they didn't have was Tekken Force, or they even had a tutorial mode, which they never get credit for. I don't know why, but
it's just those modes are just not fun. That's the thing. Those modes been there since day one. So it's like nothing really new is changing. It's just you got way more characters, way more stuff you need to pull in your head. You know.
Okay.
It's fun at first, but then when eventually you get into it, you're playing it for like a couple months. It's like, man, like, do I really want to learn all 50 character matchups, and plus even 50 more matchups between teams? It's just like, it's overwhelming.
Well,
you know, it's just too much.
Okay.
You know?
May I interject real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is where we start differing in our opinions of the Tekken games. I think, like, I mean, obviously, Um, we probably have our favorites. Like, you know, my favorite is 2 on the PS1, and his is probably 3 on the PS1. My favorite on PS2 is, well, shit, I don't know. 5 and Tag are both really good. I don't know what to say there, but Tag 2, I kind of want to like go to your points a little bit, and I kind of want to like not necessarily prove you wrong or anything, but like this is what I gotta say to combat that. Um, the difference between, and I want to talk about like when you said that characters cover each other. The difference between like 3D fighting games and 2D fighting games, when we're talking about covering weaknesses, is most 2D fighting games, when they're like a versus title, or more rather like a tag title, like MBC, their weaknesses are covered via assists. And even Dragon Ball Fighters, you know, we've talked at length about Dragon Ball Fighters and why I stopped playing it after season 1 and everything. It's because assists are crazy along with crazy characters. And it's funny to me how that doesn't irritate you as much, especially when it changed like over several times, you know, with assists and different balancing efforts put in, and you had to keep learning all this, but you kept with it with Dragon Ball Fighters, you know what I mean? But you drop Tag 2, and Tag 2 doesn't have 2 people attacking you at once unless you're in a juggle. So, like, that's all I had to say to that. I feel like people can't compartmentalize well enough for that. It's like it's not the same type of thing. The only thing you have to worry about is, you know, changing the matchup knowledge a little bit mid-match, but that happens in any versus game. That's going to happen in Marvel vs. Capcom. It's going to happen in excuse me. It's going to happen in Dragon Ball Fighters. It's going to happen in any game where you have to tag in another character. Tekken having a bunch of moves doesn't really like make that much of a difference to me, especially when it's not as volatile as somebody just covering you with an attack and hitting you when you can't see your own character. You know, that doesn't happen in stuff like Tag 2, as opposed to like MVC, Dragon Ball, or even BB Tag. In Tag 2, the worst that'll happen is you fight 2 people that you don't know the matchup against, or like they're really, really strong, like I mentioned Bob, Lars, or Double Jin. When you're playing Tag 2, it's one-on-one for the most part, and I had to harken back to the move list thing. So this is what bothers me about Tag 2 and people mentioning the move list and how that's something that they don't want to deal with. The thing is, the characters that were added from Tekken 6, because people seem to think Tekken 6 was okay because it sold like 3 million. Tag 2 sold just under 2 million within the first year. Probably sold more, I don't know. But Tekken 6 had 40 characters, and out of the 40 characters that were added that were in Tekken 6, all of them returned on Tag 2. And they had characters that they were previously based off of join in Tag 2. Jun Kazama made an appearance back in Tag 2. I'll use her as an example because I think this is the best example of the characters that are similar but different. Jun is the precursor to Asuka. Asuka took Jun's style, and Asuka imprinted on it and made it her own style, which is still very similar to what we had with Jun at first. Jun became much different in Tag 2, you know, and that is a matchup that you would need to learn because they are so different. But Jun doesn't have a bunch of mix-ups, you see, that Asuka doesn't have. She just has some moves, like some more mids, you know. And another example, this is probably another good example, Michelle and Julia, both in the same game. They, for the most part, have the same moves. Well, not for the most part. They have different moves and sort of different play styles because Julia was made to be more of a grappler. But they still have the base formula that they, you know, have had since the beginning of time. Michelle just has different different juggle moves, different moves to start juggles, like sidestep 3+4. she sidesteps and then she crushes highs and mids and it launches you. Julia doesn't have that anymore in that game. Like, I don't even, in that case, I wouldn't even say it's like a matchup issue. It's like one of those things where it's like, okay, this character has these two moves or these several moves I might need to watch out for, whereas this one doesn't. But it's basically the same match. It's like Double Jin and Kazuya, too. Like, they're both in the game, and they were in Tekken 5. I wouldn't necessarily say that, oh man, this matchup is super different from this one. They're both Mishimas. Double Jin just has a better Hell Suite. You know? Of course, their movesets are similar, but they're different. But also, it's not that big of a deal. So that's why I had to, like, talk about Tag 2 like that. You know? It's like, when you're talking about the matchups and the matchup knowledge, fighting Christy, Eddie, and Tiger Jackson is basically the same thing. That's 3 characters out of 50. And if you think that Angel is anywhere near close to like Double Jin, Angel was like the worst character. Double Jin is like the best. You don't need to care about the like Angel's matchup that badly. That's how I combat that logic, you know. And that's what
I can say. Well,
go ahead.
You know, that's just you. You know, for what I can see, and everyone else, this is just too much. This is just a lot to deal with.
Oh, don't do that. It's not. Come on, don't do that. You know, don't say it's just me, because I can say it's just you, bro. Like,
I mean, people. You're gonna have the competitive crowd, and you're gonna have the casual crowd. That's what this game was dealing with. The casual crowd probably liked it at first, but then sticking with the game is just too much. It's overcrowded.
That's the most people that like the game, and I'm sorry, but they're the majority here. You know, they might not have sold as much, but if the casual fans that enjoy Tekken and love Tekken to the core like it, I can't see that as being a bad thing, even though it didn't sell 5 million copies like they might have wanted it to after all the work they put into it, you know? And
I'm not saying they didn't put no work into it. I'm pretty sure this is a dream game for Tekken fans, you know? But what brought it down and why it wasn't played for so long, it was because, you know, don't forget, when it came to consoles, they added more characters, you know?
Yeah.
Like, way more characters, so it's just like, you gotta learn those characters, and plus you got the double characters,
which
like
none of those
they play similar, but they're different, but they still play similar. So it's pretty much just like you're playing against the same character. It's just that the other one just has like 2 or 3 different moves.
Yeah,
which probably in the long term they're probably not even worth even using, which was the case with like Law and Enforced Law.
Yeah, Law.
Which was a problem, you know. So
yeah, and
it was just annoying.
I mean,
competitive players too, you know, like they hated that shit too. They didn't like it. Like that's why you always saw like people picking different characters. I wasn't picking doubles.
I don't want to hear it about. I don't want to hear what they have to say about that shit. Pros are fucking. They all. It's like when they make those posts about people switching up on their characters. Like, who was it? Was it Saint? One of the characters stopped using Bob or something. Like, he said something. He had a tweet when Bob got announced, or when Bob was playable. Whenever Tekken came out, he was like, stick with your character. And then he like dropped Bob because Bob sucked in Tekken 7. Like, bro, I don't want to hear it from them. Most of those motherfuckers were picking Brian, Law, and fucking Lars in Tekken 6 tournaments. Do you remember when... No, it was Bob. It was Bob, Law, and Brian in Tekken 6 tournaments. That shit was like most of top 8 and even more for Tekken 6. So when these motherfuckers are here telling me, you know, casual fan who plays with like, I don't know, it was like 10 characters at the time. I was playing with Michelle, Kunimitsu, Kazuya, Lee, Bruce, Brian. These aren't specific teams. P-Jack, True Ogre, Zafina. You know, when you're telling me like the matchup with these characters is like too confusing or it's like too frustrating and you hate doubles, it's like, bro, you're literally playing character that's okay, character that's good versus character that's worse than that. You know, like Forest Law and Law. I'm gonna use them as an example. Martial Law was way better than Forest. Martial Law had fucking he had those dragon cancels that he still has to this day. Forest Law didn't have that. Forest Law had some weak cancels. Forest Law was like one of the worst characters that was similar to another character. Like, they might think it's annoying, but how the fuck do they deal with fighting Law just by himself the entire round or the entire match if that's the case? You know? Like, oh man, I had to fight 2 Laws? Okay, one of the Laws is worse. Imagine if you had to fight a really good fucking double Jin, and then there's a better double Jin. You know, the best character in the game. Nope, you guys prefer playing Bob and Lars. Like, would they prefer if Tekken Tag 2 was just less Tekken 6 cast with Tag? So Bob and Lars could be the best characters? Or Double Jin and Bob? No, I don't care what they have to say about that. They can have their opinions and everything. I'll respect them, but nah. You can't sit there and tell me that these characters that are literally worse than the better characters, or even characters that were just like a little different, ruin that game for everybody. Get out of my face. Michelle and Julia as a team is not toxic. You know? But they wouldn't cry about Heihachi and Kazuya, because, I mean, they both have hell sweeps. So, you know, to me that's more volatile than Forest Law doing, what is it, down 2-3, or this kick flip.
Mm-hmm.
That he needed a counter hit for to launch.
Well, those are very specifics. But in terms of just the game in general, like, you just had all these characters, and, you know, as a Tekken fan, you're gonna love that shit. They're all fan favorites. You know, it's just back then, fighting games were getting closer to mainstream, and Tekken Tag 2 was part of the lineup fighting games that were trying to get into the limelight. You know, competitively, they're all MLG and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that at the end of the day, all you did was just keep fighting, and there was no like fighting, customizing, fighting, customizing, fighting. You know, what was Tekken Ball was in there? Tekken, like bowling, like the bowling was in there. You know, like, I don't remember.
The bowling wasn't in there. A ball came in Yeah,
that's all you did, man. Fighting and customizing and fighting, and there was really nothing else besides like the tutorial, which it had a spin to it, and then you just had the basic modes that you would expect anyway from Tekken: time attack, survival, you know, practice, arcade. Like, that's nothing special. What is that? Like, you just playing this damn game. This is a basic game at that point, with tech mechanics and a bunch of characters that you could customize. But besides from that, that's it, man. It's like,
hey,
that's it, man. That's all it is.
Hey, on that video for the pod, you put thank you, by the way, instead of thank you. Yeah,
it still means thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I kind of want to close on this because I feel like
that's the comfort. That's the I'll say it's I don't hate the game. You know, I don't play the game still like shit. But I know I'm not gonna be able to learn everything in it.
I don't think that you should be expected to, and I feel like that as a casual gamer, nobody knows everything about any of these fighting games, and even professionals don't know everything about these fighting games. Like, they know a lot more than somebody like me would about the competitive scene. But I'm just looking at it from a casual fan who loves Tekken. Like you said, I like that all the characters are in it. All these characters that I think are phenomenal. I like that they didn't have to pick and choose for this game. They just said, let's just make these characters. And like in Tekken 5, how they did with Brian and Bruce, they're like, hey guys, this is what we're doing. We're going to make these characters different from one another, but make sure that they're similar so you see that these are still the characters that you love. And I was really happy about that. So with all this,
Yeah, because I could say that in terms of just like, well, if the game would have had Tekken Bowl, then I would say that is it like a
Ball.
complete improvement over Tag 1, you know?
I,
But,
I
you
would
know,
say ball. I like ball more than bowl. But
yeah, but whatever the case, you know, there was no mini game attached to Tag 2. It was only on the Wii U version, which was stupid.
that was stupid.
They didn't even put it as a DLC for the other versions.
Again,
So-
like I said, if they had patched Tekken Tag 2, the people who complained about the balance, the people who complained about the lack of other content, would have more, and they wouldn't remember it so distastefully as they do right now. I think that the game was wonderful. Like, to step on your point about the about just customizing and fighting, I would argue that that's twice as much as what you get to do in any fighting game that we play nowadays that we champion. You love Dragon Ball Fighters, there's not a lot of customization in it. There's nothing else to do in that game but fight. And, you know, that game, I didn't drop it because of that, but we can't look at Tekken Tag 2 that way and then look at these other games that have came out within the past like 5, 6, 7 years and say, well, they had all the content. Tekken 7 doesn't even have team attack, doesn't have time attack. Tekken 7 doesn't have anything, and this is why I wanted to close, because after you said that, I just started to think about what Tekken 7 has. Tekken Tag 2 has 4 times, maybe even 5 times more content. If you buy Tekken 7 Raw Dog without a condom, that shit is like 25 or like 30 characters, bro. That's like, what, slightly under Tekken 5 if I remember correctly, right? I don't know. Somebody might have to correct me on that, but yeah.
I think it's like 40 some characters right now.
Yeah, I'm saying if you raw dog Tekken 7 without a condom, you hear what I'm saying? You raw dog Tekken 7 without a condom, and you get the main standard edition, like I got on sale for Steam. That shit is like 30 characters, and it's less than Tekken 6. It has less modes. The story is possibly even worse. And that game sold 6 million copies. People ate it up and they sucked its dick, and it's working its way towards as many characters as Tekken Tag 2.